In the heart of Spokane, Washington, the year 1959 dawned with the promise of prosperity and peace. The city, a mosaic of bustling streets and serene neighborhoods, pulsed with the optimism of the post-war era. Houses, lined like sentinels of Americana, stood with their white picket fences and manicured lawns, while children's laughter echoed through the air, a testament to the community's unwavering sense of security. The Rogers family home, nestled in one such idyllic neighborhood, was a haven of warmth and love. Candace "Candy" Rogers, a spirited 9-year-old with a heartwarming smile and twinkling eyes, was the embodiment of the innocence that permeated the town. Her world was simple yet full of joy. School days filled with learning and play, evenings at home with her loving mother, and weekends engaged in activities with the Bluebirds, a group of young girls under the umbrella of the Campfire Girls of America. Candy's neighborhood was a tapestry of friendly faces and open doors. Neighbors greeted each other by name, sharing news and garden produce, while children played hopscotch on the sidewalks and rode bicycles until the streetlights flickered on. It was a time when doors were seldom locked, and trust was as common as the morning dew. In this close-knit community, Candy was a familiar sight, known for her cheerful demeanor and helpful nature. She would often be seen skipping along the sidewalks, humming a tune or chatting animatedly with her friends. Her innocence was a mirror of the town itself, a place seemingly untouched by the shadows of the wider world. But beneath this veneer of tranquility, an undercurrent of change was stirring. The winds of progress brought new technologies and ideas, slowly altering the fabric of everyday life. Television sets flickered in living rooms, bringing news of distant lands and hinting at the complexities beyond Spokane's borders. Yet for the moment, these changes seemed like mere whispers against the steadfast rhythm of community life. As winter thawed into spring, the residents of Spokane, including the Rogers family, looked forward to the simple pleasures of the coming months. Backyard barbecues, fishing trips, and the laughter of children playing under the sun. Unbeknownst to them, the fabric of their peaceful existence was about to be torn apart, and their belief in the inherent safety of their world challenged in a way they could never have imagined. In this setting of serene normalcy, the stage was set for a story that would shake the very foundations of Spokane, a tale of innocence lost, and a mystery that would linger in the hearts of its residents for decades to come. Candy Rogers, with her sun-kissed cheeks and hair the color of autumn leaves, woke to the chirping of birds outside her window. The rays of the morning sun danced across her room, touching the walls adorned with drawings and posters of animals, a testament to her love for all creatures great and small. In the bustling Rogers household kitchen, the aroma of freshly baked bread and sizzling bacon filled the air. Candy's mother, a woman of kind eyes and gentle hands, moved gracefully around the kitchen, orchestrating the morning routine. Their bond was a tapestry woven with love, laughter, and countless shared moments. Candy's father had passed when she was just a toddler, leaving her mother to raise Candy alone, a challenge she met with unwavering strength and affection. School days for Candy were an adventure. She was a bright spark in her 4th grade class, her hand always shooting up with answers, her eagerness to learn as infectious as her giggle. Her teachers adored her, and her classmates were drawn to her vivacious energy. She thrived in this world of learning and camaraderie, her academic prowess matched only by her kindness towards others. After school, Candy's world expanded to the realms of the Bluebirds. Here, among her peers, she learned the values of teamwork, leadership, and community service. The Bluebirds were more than just an organization for young girls. They were a sisterhood that nurtured the dreams and aspirations of its members. Candy, with her natural charisma, was a beloved member, often at the forefront of activities, whether it was crafting, singing, or planning their next community project. Candy's neighborhood was her playground, a safe haven where she knew every nook and cranny. She had a special bond with many of the neighbors, often helping them with small chores or delivering homemade treats her mother had prepared. Her presence was a ray of sunshine, bringing smiles and warmth to those she encountered. As spring approached, Candy prepared for one of the Bluebirds' annual traditions, selling campfire mints. This activity was more than just a fundraiser. It was a rite of passage for the young girls, instilling in them a sense of responsibility and the joy of contributing to their community. Candy, with her persuasive charm and earnestness, was a natural at this, her enthusiasm infectious as she planned her route through the neighborhood. In her room, Candy counted the boxes of mints, her excitement palpable. She had a goal in mind, determined to surpass her last year's sales. She meticulously planned her route, confining it to the familiar streets around her home. Her mother watched her with pride, marveling at her daughter's zest for life and her boundless energy. That fateful day, as Candy donned her Bluebird uniform, a symbol of her commitment and pride, she had no inkling of the turn her story would take. With a bounce in her step and a box of mints cradled in her arms, she waved goodbye to her mother, her smile bright as she embarked on her journey, one that was meant to be a simple errand in a familiar world. But as the door closed behind her, a shadow fell across the Rogers home, a premonition of the darkness that was about to engulf their lives, and the community that had always felt like a sanctuary. The innocence of Candy's world was on the brink of being shattered, the echoes of her laughter soon to be replaced by a silence that would haunt the streets of Spokane for years to come. March 6th dawned crisp and clear, the kind of spring day that held the promise of new beginnings. Candy, dressed in her Bluebird uniform, a badge of honor and excitement, clutched her box of campfire mints with a determination that belied her tender age. Her mother, watching from the doorway, felt a swell of pride for her little girl, embarking on a mission of such earnestness. The neighborhood, a canvas of suburban bliss, was alive with the sounds and sights of daily life. Candy stepped out, her steps light and purposeful. She knew each house by heart, the ones with the friendly dogs, the gardens blooming with early spring flowers, and the neighbors who always had a kind word and a smile for her. Her journey began at Mrs. Thompson's, 2 doors down. The elderly lady, always waiting with a glass of lemonade and a cookie, greeted Candy with her usual warmth. "There's my favorite salesgirl," she'd say, her eyes twinkling. Candy's laughter, bright and carefree, filled the room as she made her first sale of the day. As she moved from house to house, her confidence grew. She was in her element, chatting amiably, her pitch honed to perfection. The neighbors, charmed by her enthusiasm, gladly purchased the mints, some even buying extra boxes, unable to resist her infectious spirit. Candy's route took her further down the street, past the row of elm trees that marked the edge of her familiar world. She approached each doorstep with the same cheerful greeting, her box of mints steadily emptying. The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a golden glow over the neighborhood, a picture of serene normalcy. But as the afternoon waned, a subtle shift occurred. The friendly faces and open doors gradually gave way to silence. Candy found herself on a less familiar stretch of road, the houses here spaced further apart, their facades less inviting. A sense of unease crept into the air, an invisible cloud dimming the brightness of the day. Back at home, Candy's mother began to feel the first stirrings of worry. Time, usually a reliable friend, now seemed to mock her with its slow passage. The shadows grew longer, and the laughter of children returning from their play dwindled, replaced by a quiet that felt out of place. In the heart of the neighborhood, an unspoken question began to form on everyone's lips. Where was Candy? The girl who had set out that morning, full of hope and joy, had not returned. The boxes of mints she had hoped to sell lay forgotten, their purpose overshadowed by a growing sense of dread. As the last light of day faded, the streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows on the empty sidewalks. Candy's route, once a path of friendly encounters and small victories, had become a trail of uncertainty and fear. The community, so used to the safety and predictability of their daily lives, found themselves on the precipice of a mystery that would shake the very foundations of their world. In this twilight of hope and fear, Candy's last walk became more than just a memory. It transformed into the beginning of a tale that would echo through the years, a story of innocence lost and a community forever changed. As dusk settled over Spokane, a blanket of unease draped the Rogers neighborhood. The streets, usually echoing with the sounds of evening activities, were hushed as if holding their breath. Inside the Rogers home, Candy's mother paced by the window, her heart racing with each passing minute. The cheerful kitchen, once filled with the aroma of dinner, now seemed oppressive, the silence punctuated by the ticking of the clock. Neighbors began to gather, a growing sense of concern uniting them. Whispers turned into conversations, each person recounting their last sighting of Candy. She had been seen here, spoken to there, a ghostly trail of interactions that led to nowhere. The realization that Candy was missing sent a ripple of shock through the community, a stark contrast to the tranquility of the morning. The local police were alerted, their arrival marking the shift from worry to action. Officer Matthews, a veteran of the force, took the lead, his expression grave as he listened to the accounts. A search party was quickly organized, neighbors joining in, driven by a mix of fear and determination. Flashlights in hand, they combed the streets, calling out Candy's name, each echo a testament to their growing desperation. The search widened, spilling into the adjacent areas. The nearby park with its hidden corners, the wooded area where children played hide and seek, the quiet back alleys. Every shadow was inspected, every possible hiding place checked. But as hours turned into night, hope began to wane. The vibrant girl who had set out that morning remained elusive, her absence a growing void in the heart of the community. Back at the police station, Officer Matthews and his team pored over maps, trying to piece together Candy's route, looking for clues that might have been missed. The urgency was palpable, each officer aware of the critical nature of these initial hours. Calls came in, tips and sightings, each one followed with relentless determination, but leading only to dead ends. In the Rogers living room, now a makeshift command center, Candy's mother sat, surrounded by friends and neighbors, their faces etched with concern. The room, once filled with laughter and life, now echoed with hushed tones and reassurances that felt increasingly hollow. The pictures of Candy, smiling from the frames on the walls, served as a poignant reminder of the happiness that once was. As the night deepened, the reality of the situation settled like a heavy cloak. This was no ordinary case of a child straying too far from home. Something sinister had unfolded on the quiet streets of Spokane, a narrative that defied their understanding of the world they lived in. The community, so often a haven of safety and predictability, now faced an unknown terror. Parents held their children a little tighter. Glances were exchanged, filled with unspoken fears. The disappearance of Candy Rogers had shattered their illusion of security, exposing the fragility of their idyllic existence. In the darkness of that night, as the search continued, a haunting question lingered in the air. What had happened to Candy Rogers? The answer, buried in the shadows of a seemingly peaceful neighborhood, would unfold in a tale of tragedy and mystery, forever altering the lives of those who knew her and the community that had once felt like a sanctuary. The relentless search for Candy Rogers continued as dawn broke, casting a pale light over Spokane. The neighborhood, shrouded in a somber mood, was a stark contrast to the usual bright beginnings of a new day. Police officers, volunteers, and family members resumed their efforts, their faces etched with fatigue and worry. The morning air was crisp, a chill that seemed to penetrate deeper than just the skin. It was in these early hours, amidst the whispers of the waking world, that a chilling discovery was made. In a secluded area, a dense copse of trees that children often explored for adventure, lay the unthinkable. Candy's body was found, partially hidden under a blanket of fallen leaves, a sight so harrowing that it sent a wave of shock through the search party. The vibrant girl, who had left her home with a box of mints and a heart full of dreams, lay still, her innocence cruelly snatched away. The piece of her own clothing, used in the heinous act, was a grotesque marker of the tragedy. The news spread like wildfire, a burning arrow piercing the heart of the community. Candy's mother, upon hearing the dreadful news, collapsed into a world of unspeakable pain, her worst fears realized in the most horrific manner. Friends and neighbors gathered, their expressions a mix of grief and disbelief, struggling to comprehend the enormity of the tragedy. The police, now dealing with a crime scene, cordoned off the area, their professional demeanor masking the turmoil within. Officer Matthews, who had seen much in his years of service, felt a personal affront at this violation of innocence. The investigation took on a new urgency, a silent vow made to bring justice for Candy. The forensic team worked meticulously, gathering every possible piece of evidence. In the 1950s, forensic science was in its nascent stages, but every clue was precious. Photographs were taken, fingerprints collected, and any traces left by the perpetrator were carefully documented. As the news of Candy's murder rippled through Spokane, a palpable change occurred. Doors that were once left unlocked were now secured, windows checked and double-checked. Parents, who had once watched their children play freely, now kept them close, the shadow of fear looming large. The community, once a haven of trust and safety, now looked over its shoulder, suspicious of every unfamiliar face. The tragedy of Candy Rogers had not just claimed a young life. It had stolen the very essence of innocence from the neighborhood. Playgrounds that once echoed with laughter now stood silent, a testament to the loss of a simpler time. In the midst of this sorrow, a resolve began to form. The community, united in their grief, stood with the Rogers family, a collective determination to find the monster who had walked among them, hidden in plain sight. As the investigation unfolded, the town of Spokane braced itself for the truth, unaware of the long, arduous journey ahead in their quest for justice. Candy's passing marked more than just a tragic end to a young life. It signaled the beginning of a mystery that would haunt Spokane for decades, a wound that would take years to heal, if ever. The story of Candy Rogers, now etched in the annals of the town's history, was a tale of innocence lost, a reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that sometimes lurks behind the facade of normalcy. In the weeks following the tragic discovery of Candy Rogers, a heavy silence fell over Spokane. The bustling streets and cheerful chatter that once defined the neighborhood were replaced by a somber quietude, as if the community was collectively holding its breath, awaiting answers that never came. The Rogers home, once a beacon of warmth and love, became a sanctuary of sorrow. Candy's mother, engulfed in grief, moved through the days like a shadow, her once bright eyes now mirrors of unending pain. The loss of her daughter was an open wound, a constant reminder of the joy that had been so cruelly ripped away. The investigation into Candy's murder was exhaustive. Officer Matthews and his team followed every lead, every tip, no matter how small. They interviewed neighbors, friends, and anyone who might have seen something on that fateful day. Yet, as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the trail grew cold. The lack of concrete evidence and the limitations of forensic technology at the time left the police grappling in the dark. The community, once bound by trust and camaraderie, found itself fractured by suspicion and fear. Parents watched their children with hawk-like vigilance, and an unspoken mistrust began to brew among neighbors. The innocence and openness that had been the cornerstone of life in Spokane were now overshadowed by the specter of an unknown predator lurking in their midst. As the seasons changed, so did the rhythm of the neighborhood. The local park, where Candy once played, became a somber place, the swings and slides standing unused, like monuments to a lost childhood. The annual community events, once vibrant and lively, now carried an undertone of melancholy, the laughter and conversations tinged with the unspoken memory of Candy. The years rolled on, and the case of Candy Rogers, unsolved and seemingly forgotten by the world at large, remained a haunting presence in Spokane. The story became a local legend, a tale of caution whispered among the residents, a chilling reminder of the fragility of safety. In the absence of justice, the Rogers family and the community clung to memories, to the bright moments that Candy had brought into their lives. Her laughter, her energy, her unbridled joy for life, though snatched away, lived on in the hearts of those who knew her. Photographs of her smiling face adorned mantels and walls, a bittersweet tribute to a life that should have been. But even as time marched on, the case was never truly closed. Officer Matthews, now nearing retirement, often found himself revisiting the files, the unanswered questions gnawing at him. The lack of closure was a heavy burden, a career-long regret that he carried with him. Years turned into decades, and the world witnessed a revolution in technology and science. The field of forensic science, once limited in its capabilities, underwent a remarkable transformation. This era of scientific advancement brought with it new hope in solving cold cases that had long remained shrouded in mystery, including the haunting case of Candy Rogers. In Spokane, amidst the changing skyline and the ebb and flow of life, the memory of Candy's case lingered, a ghostly presence in the collective consciousness of the community. Officer Matthews, now retired, passed the baton to a new generation of detectives, but not without instilling in them the unresolved echo of Candy's case. As the 21st century dawned, DNA analysis had become a cornerstone of criminal investigations. Techniques that once seemed like science fiction were now realities, turning minuscule traces of biological material into powerful tools for justice. Forensic scientists could now extract and analyze DNA from evidence decades old, offering a glimmer of hope in cases long considered lost to time. In a renewed push to solve cold cases, the Spokane Police Department, armed with these technological advancements, revisited the Candy Rogers case. The old evidence, preserved as best as it could be over the years, was re-examined. The piece of clothing found with Candy, once a silent witness to her tragic end, became the focus of this renewed investigation. The forensic team worked meticulously, extracting DNA samples from the decades-old evidence. Every fiber, every trace element was analyzed with the precision and dedication that modern forensic science afforded. This painstaking process was a race against time and decay, a battle to coax secrets from remnants of the past. Simultaneously, the world of genetic genealogy had begun to emerge as a groundbreaking tool in solving crimes. By combining traditional genealogical research with DNA analysis, it became possible to construct family trees from unidentified DNA samples, potentially leading to suspects or victims in cold cases. The Spokane Police Department, collaborating with forensic experts and genealogists, embarked on this complex journey. They delved into the world of genetic markers and ancestral databases, seeking a match for the DNA extracted from Candy's clothing. It was a search that spanned generations and geographies, tracing the invisible threads of biology and history. This renewed investigation into Candy's case ignited a spark of hope in the hearts of the community, especially those who had never forgotten the bright-eyed girl whose life was so brutally taken. There was a sense of cautious optimism, a collective holding of breath as science and determination converged in the quest for long-overdue justice. As the forensic team inched closer to a breakthrough, the people of Spokane watched and waited. The advances in forensic science, once a distant concept, were now their beacon of hope, a chance to finally uncover the truth hidden in the shadows of the past. The story of Candy Rogers, etched in the annals of Spokane's history, was on the verge of a new chapter, one that held the promise of answers and closure after decades of haunting silence. The decision to reopen the case of Candy Rogers was more than a procedural step. It was a rekindling of hope in the hearts of those who had never forgotten the little girl lost so many years ago. The Spokane Police Department, now equipped with cutting-edge forensic tools and a new generation of determined detectives, delved into the cold case with renewed vigor. Detective Sarah Jennings, a sharp-minded and compassionate officer, took the lead. She pored over the old files, immersing herself in the details of that fateful spring day in 1959. The faded photographs, witness statements, and officer notes were not just historical records. They were silent pleas for justice. The breakthrough in forensic technology, particularly in DNA analysis, was the beacon that guided this renewed investigation. The piece of Candy's clothing, a crucial piece of evidence that had been carefully preserved, became the cornerstone of their efforts. With meticulous care, the forensic team worked to extract viable DNA, a task that was both technically challenging and emotionally charged. As the team delved deeper, the advancements in genetic genealogy provided a new and promising avenue. This approach, which combined the precision of DNA analysis with the breadth of genealogical research, opened doors that had been firmly shut for decades. The investigators embarked on the painstaking process of building family trees, tracing genetic breadcrumbs that could lead them to the person responsible for Candy's death. This process was a delicate dance of science and intuition, of sifting through generations of familial connections. The detectives collaborated with genealogists, piecing together the puzzle that was slowly forming from the DNA evidence. Each genetic marker, each ancestral link, brought them closer to unmasking a face from the shadows of the past. Meanwhile, the Spokane community, once again thrust into the emotional whirlwind of Candy's case, watched with a mixture of hope and apprehension. The reopening of the case stirred old memories, old wounds. Parents who had once allowed their children to roam freely now looked back with a tinge of guilt and sorrow, questioning the innocence of an era gone by. For Candy's remaining family members, the reopening of the case was a bittersweet moment. The possibility of finally obtaining closure battled with the pain of resurfacing grief. Candy's story, a part of Spokane's identity, was once again in the limelight, a reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring quest for justice. As Detective Jennings and her team delved deeper into the genetic genealogy results, the pieces of the puzzle began to form a clearer picture. The DNA extracted from the clothing was pointing to a lineage, a family tree with branches that extended into the present day. The investigators were on the cusp of a discovery, a revelation that had the potential to solve one of Spokane's most enduring mysteries. The journey to find Candy's killer, spanning decades and bridging generations, was a testament to the relentless pursuit of justice. It was a story that transcended time, a narrative of perseverance and hope in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. As the investigation neared a critical point, the community of Spokane braced itself for the truth, a truth that had been hidden for far too long in the shadows of the past. The investigation into Candy Rogers' case had reached a pivotal juncture. Detective Jennings and her team, after countless hours of meticulous work, stood on the brink of a revelation that could finally provide answers to the haunting questions that had lingered for decades. Through the intricate web of genetic genealogy, a suspect emerged from the shadows of the past. John Ray Hoff, a name previously unknown in the context of Candy's story. Hoff, a former soldier and door-to-door salesman, had been a part of the Spokane community in 1959. The DNA evidence, a silent witness for so many years, had finally spoken, linking Hoff unequivocally to the crime. As Jennings delved into Hoff's history, a chilling profile began to emerge. He had been a neighbor, living within the fabric of the community, his true nature hidden behind a veneer of normalcy. The realization that the perpetrator had been so close, a part of the everyday landscape of Spokane, sent ripples of shock and disbelief throughout the community. Hoff had passed away years earlier, taking with him the answers to the many questions that still hung in the air. However, the genetic evidence spoke volumes, painting a picture of a hidden predator who had walked among them unnoticed. The case, which had long been a haunting enigma, was finally yielding its dark secrets. For the residents of Spokane, especially those who remembered the fateful spring of 1959, the revelation brought a tumultuous mix of emotions. There was relief that the mystery was finally solved, but it was overshadowed by the horror of the truth. The knowledge that Hoff, a seemingly ordinary man, had harbored such darkness was a bitter pill to swallow. For Candy's surviving family members, the revelation brought a complex closure. The pain of her loss, still raw despite the passage of time, was now compounded by the knowledge of who had been responsible. Yet there was also a sense of justice, albeit delayed, that the person who had taken Candy from them had finally been identified. Detective Jennings, who had become deeply invested in the case, felt a profound sense of responsibility to bring this chapter to a close. She organized a press conference detailing the journey of the investigation and the role of forensic science and genetic genealogy in solving the case. The story of Candy Rogers, which had haunted Spokane for over 60 years, had finally reached a resolution. As the news spread, the story of Candy Rogers and the resolution of her case resonated far beyond Spokane. It became a symbol of hope for other cold cases, demonstrating the power of persistence and the revolutionary impact of forensic advancements. In Spokane, a memorial service was held in Candy's honor. The community gathered, not only to remember the bright, vibrant girl who had been taken from them, but to acknowledge the journey they had all been on. It was a moment of collective healing, a chance to lay to rest the ghost that had lingered in their midst. Candy's story, which had begun as a tale of innocence and tragedy, had now evolved into a narrative of resilience and the relentless pursuit of truth. The community of Spokane, forever changed by the events of 1959, had come full circle, finding a semblance of peace in the unveiling of a long-hidden truth. After the dust settled on the evidence of John Hoffa's guilt in the murder of Candy Rogers, the city of Spokane began a process of collective introspection and healing. The uncovering of one of the darkest secrets evoked a complex mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and a deep sense of loss of the innocence that was taken away so many years ago. A memorial to Candy emerged in the heart of the community, a testament to her memory and journey for justice. People from all walks of life came here, leaving flowers, notes, and signs of remembrance. It was a sacred place where the community could come together to mourn her, reflect, and find solace. Candy's family, who had lived in the shadow of her unsolved case for decades, found bittersweet closure. While nothing could bring back the bright-eyed girl they had lost, they were comforted by the realization that the mystery surrounding her fate had been solved. Her mother, now an elderly woman, expressed a poignant mixture of sorrow and gratitude. Sorrow for the life Candy never got to live, and gratitude for the answers that had finally been found. Detective Jennings, who had been a beacon of hope and determination throughout the investigation, reflected on the journey that had been made. This case was not only professional, but deeply personal. By solving it, it not only helped the family and the community, but also emphasized the enduring importance of seeking justice, no matter how much time has passed. Candy Rogers' story resonated far beyond Spokane, touching hearts and minds across the country. It served as a powerful reminder of the impact that unsolved cases have on families and communities. It also emphasized the vital role of advances in forensic science and the importance of revisiting cold cases using new technologies and perspectives. Schools and community centers in Spokane have started programs to keep children safe and informed, so that the lessons of Candy's story are not lost. Her case became a catalyst for change, inspiring the community to be more vigilant and caring. As the years passed, Candy Rogers' legacy lived on. Annual memorials were held, stories were told, and her life was celebrated in small but meaningful ways. The pain of her loss remained, but it was now accompanied by a sense of closure and a determination to protect and cherish the innocence of childhood.